Good morning, good afternoon, or perhaps good evening, and welcome back to IndustryBroadcast.com for audio article number 76. Today's audio article is written by Clinton Keith. Mr. Keith, a certified Scrum trainer, is the former CTO of High Moon Studios. Clint has over 20 years of professional development experience and 14 of those years in the video game industry. His games include Midnight Club, Darkwatch, Bourne Conspiracy, and numerous others. He introduced Agile development methodologies to High Moon Studios in 2003 and to the rest of the video game industry in 2005 through GDC and his popular blog at www.agilegamedevelopment.com. For more of his insight on Agile development, as well as a rundown on the invaluable services he offers, head over to www.clintonkeith.com. I would also like to take the time right now to point out that Mr. Keith is offering a tremendous 2-day course at GDC this year that not only provides the fundamental principles of Scrum, but also gives participants hands-on experience by putting theory into action through extensive use of exercises and a project simulation. For more information on the course as well as how to sign up, check out clintonkeith.com/next-public-course. The course takes place on Monday and Tuesday, March the 23rd and 24th. Audio article number 76, titled How to Fail with Agile, written by Clinton Keith and Mike Cohen, and read aloud by Ryan Wienko on the 20th of February, 2009. Agile processes are now accepted as a valid alternative to traditional software development processes. Most people who adopt Agile do so to realize the benefits of faster delivery, higher quality, and products that more closely match user needs. Not everyone, however, is so enamored with Agile. Some teams and individuals balk when a mandate to become Agile is passed down from some higher up in the organization, or when some young go-getter decides to start an idealistic grassroots movement to effect change. A switch to Agile often conflicts with personal goals, such as maintaining the status quo, avoiding career risk, working no harder than necessary, or maintaining a large fiefdom of direct reports. It is to these individuals, those who have to become Agile but don't want to, that we would like to direct our advice. Don't worry, we're not going to try to seduce you into trying Agile, convince you of its merits, or tell you how to succeed. Oh no, we're going to help you fail with Agile. Then you'll be done with it and you can go back to your comfort zone. Although there are many ways to sabotage your Agile project, for convenience we have grouped them into 4 categories: management issues, team issues, product owner issues, and process issues. In each instance we will cite an example of someone who successfully caused an Agile adoption to fail, list the general guidelines for failure that example is meant to demonstrate, and then list alternative techniques that you can do to try to help replicate the process. We hope this approach will allow you to fail quickly and avoid potential success. Management issues. Drew had seen management fads come and go. In his mind, Agile was no different. A quick learner, he read a number of books and even took a class on Agile. He didn't trust it, but as a team player, it was his obligation to give it a try. Drew picked team members and told them, "Go be Agile." He told them that they would need to meet daily, estimate their work, and produce versions of their product, a database tool for storing artwork, every month. Since Drew didn't trust Agile or his team's ability, he attended every daily scrum, paying close attention and pointing out what the team was doing right and what they were doing wrong. Soon the daily meetings became a model of brevity and procedural correctness. As a bonus, no one spoke up about problems, especially in front of Drew. Drew had successfully followed our first guideline to Agile failure. That being, don't trust your team or Agile. Micromanage both your team members and the process. To nobody's surprise, the team did not produce impressive results. It didn't meet all of the iterative goals, and was no more productive than it had been before. Drew conducted retrospectives that he did not reveal any problems that he could not fix. As a result, Drew threw away all of the books he had read, and directed the team to return to the old way of developing the project. Drew was following guideline number 2. That is, if Agile isn't a silver bullet, blame Agile. While Drew went to one extreme by micromanaging his team, it was equally effective to go to the opposite extreme and not providing any guidance at all. Remember, while self-organizing Agile teams are also self-managing, they are not self-leading. An Agile team needs a type of leadership that provides a vision to work towards and motivation for achieving that vision. A strong Agile leader, often in the form of a product owner, knows how to motivate a team with a description of an extremely desirable product that is just beyond what the team may think it can do. Free to pursue that goal and provided with ongoing guidance from a product owner, an Agile team can become truly high-performing. Don't give your team that opportunity. If micromanagement isn't your style, follow guideline number 3. Equate self-managing with self-leading and provide no direction to the team whatsoever. While support for using Agile may come from the highest levels of the company, often the adoption of Agile will be driven by the team itself. Don't worry, you'll have plenty of opportunities to create failure in those cases as well, especially if you are the manager. You may want to start undermining the evangelist on the team, the one who has to read all of the books and is taking the chance to promote Agile. Brush off the rules he is asking you to follow, interpret the daily scrum with new directions, change the priority of the iteration goals. It works well, and is encapsulated in guideline number 4. Guideline number 4. Ignore the Agile practices. They don't apply to management. If you want to be sure that Agile doesn't take root, go straight to the team members themselves and let them know that you think Agile is just a fad. Some of them will be skeptical to begin with, so it won't take much to convince them to ignore the practices. Remember, like Barney Fife, you have the power to nip this in the bud. Just follow guideline number 5. That being, undermine the team's belief in Agile. Team issues. Not all of us are managers. Don't worry, non-managers can wreak havoc on a team level as well. Just take the case of the not-quite team, tasked with developing inventory management software. This team shows the power of consistency in bringing down an Agile project. For its first iteration, not quite, committed to completing 6 items from the product backlog. It finished 4. Because it was the first iteration and most teams overcommit in their first iteration, the product owner cut the team a little slack. This didn't faze the not-quite team. For the second iteration, the team again planned to finish 6 items. It finished 5. The slight improvement only lulled the product owner into a false sense of security. Not quite continued to chronically overcommit, falling short in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th iterations. Soon the product owner learned not to trust the team, and this undermined any success it may have had with Agile, a fantastic implementation of guideline number 6. That being, to continually fail to deliver what you committed to deliver during the iteration planning. When falling short, don't make the mistake of going all out on every iteration, reaching the last day panting with exhaustion time after time. A team like that could almost be forgiven for never quite delivering what is planned. A key to Not Quite's failure was its cavalier attitude towards missed commitments. Team members made it clear that they really didn't matter if something was finished on the last day of the iteration, as it had been committed, or a few days into the next iteration. What's a few days between friends, anyways? Remember, a few days here or there can add up to quite a lot. If a team continually misses its commitments, it makes it impossible for the product owner to make plans and external commitments. This leads to guideline number 7 for how to fail at Agile. That being, cavalierly move work forward from one iteration to the next. It's good to keep the product owner guessing about what will be delivered. Perhaps the best way to cause projects to fail is to follow guideline number 8. That being, do not create cross-functional teams. Put all the testers in one team, all the programmers in another, so on and so forth. Marilyn was able to use this guideline to kill her company's pilot Agile project. Her organization was developing an application that would have separate Windows and web-based clients. As a development director, Marilyn had control over team composition and was able to create 3 separate teams: a Windows team, a web team, and a test team. This team structure worked against the goals of Agile. If Marilyn had wanted to succeed, she would have instead created 3 teams that each included Windows, web, and test skills. Because Marilyn kept the teams separate, she made it impossible for any team to deliver the working software that an Agile team is expected to deliver at the end of each iteration. Nicely done, Marilyn. Another option open to Marilyn was putting all 20 of her people on one team. This would have violated the standard Agile advice of creating teams of 5 to 9 people. She could have justified it to anyone who questioned the decision by stressing the unique two-client nature of her team's product. If she had chosen to create one large team instead of 3 reasonably sized teams, Marilyn would have been substantially increasing the communication overhead of her team. This would have slowed progress and created complaints about how all the conversations in Agile were a tremendous burden. If separate teams is too hard to justify, you can bog down a project very easily by following guideline number 9. That being, large projects need large teams. Ignore all the studies that show productivity decreases with large teams due to increased communication overhead. Since everyone needs to know everything, invite all 50 people to daily stand-ups. Product owner issues. If the management and team guidelines aren't available to you, there is another route to take. Consider a takedown from a product owner angle. A product owner has many options at his or her disposal to bring an Agile project down to its knees. Take Kathy, for example, who was the product owner for a team working on a video game. The team was making great progress on features with every iteration and showing more player fun every time. Kathy let the team members keep thinking that this was all they needed to do. She never attended reviews, rarely tried the game, and requested stories that were meant to steer the game towards the product she imagined. If that weren't enough, Kathy didn't share her own vision with the team or the other customers to whom she reported, such as marketing. A year into development, the game was demonstrated to a group of executives who were shocked at the direction the game had taken. It was not what they wanted to market. The disconnect between Kathy, the team, and senior management caused the project to lose 6 months of progress. Well done, Kathy! Kathy demonstrated several guidelines for how an Agile project can fail at the hands of a product owner. Number 10 being, don't communicate the vision for the product to the team or the other stakeholders. Guideline number 11, don't pay attention to the progress of each iteration and objectively evaluate the value of that progress. And finally, guideline number 12, replace a plan document with a plan in your head that only you know. One of the tenets of the iterative development is the discovery of the value of features being added as a part of the whole. This is the reason that every iteration produces a potentially shippable release of that product. This is in stark contrast with plan-driven projects with attempt to predict the utilization of resources so the product emerges complete from all the separate parts only at the very end. When a product owner does not make that change, the team can quickly fail. It is just as critical to educate the product owner as it is to educate the team. Generally speaking, if you want to fail quickly, avoid training at all. The crucial role of the product owner often is balanced by someone who acts as the team's scrum master or coach. On many successful projects, the certain amount of naturally occurring tension exists between the product owner and the scrum master. A product owner always desires more features. The coach, by contrast, is responsible for monitoring the health of the team. If the team is being pushed too hard and is beginning to get sloppy due to fatigue, the coach pushes back against the product owner's desire for more. A good way to fail at Agile is to eliminate this push-pull tension between the coach and the product owner by following guideline number 13. Have one person share the roles of Scrum Master, the Agile coach, and product owner. In fact, have this person also be an individual contributor on the team. As you can see, failure at the product owner level is easily achieved through miscommunication, general ignorance of the team's progress, and the lack of education. You can compound that, if necessary, by having one person act in the roles that are designated to balance each other. Following these guidelines to the letter is a great way to fail. Process issues. If all else succeeds, careful misapplication of process issues can bring down almost any Agile project. John is a terrific example of a process nightmare, and he did most of his best sabotage without even knowing what he was doing. John was the lead developer for a Chicago-based team developing software designed to approve or reject loan applications. In addition to being the lead developer, he was also the Scrum Master. Note how we began by embracing Guideline number 13, which by itself can wreak havoc. John and his team were new to Agile and were anxious to get rid of its unneeded parts. They immediately dispensed with daily stand-up meetings, reasoning that since the team sat in the same general area, most conversations could be heard over the 6-foot-high cubicle walls. They also decided that having automated unit tests was unnecessary. Since theirs was a new application, there was no chance of breaking old code, and since all new code would be fresh in everyone's minds, there was little chance of accidentally breaking it. However, John and his co-workers did embrace refactoring and collective code ownership. Their new rule was that any programmer could change the code of any other programmer at any time. They soon learned that refactoring and collective code ownership can be very dangerous without the safety net of automated unit tests that make sure you aren't breaking things while improving them. John and his teams had unwittingly stumbled on the 2 guidelines for causing teams to fail at Agile, that being Guideline number 14, start customizing an Agile process before you've done it by the book, and lastly Guideline number 15, drop and customize important Agile practices before fully understanding them. An alternative to these guidelines is to dive into the practices without understanding why you're doing them. As coaches, we encounter many teams who have learned a technique or have been told to do something by someone and who then continue to do it even when they've outgrown the technique, a subtle yet quite effective subterfuge. This brings to mind the story of the newlywed wife who cuts a 1/4 inch off of both ends of each roast she cooks. When her husband asks why she's trimming the roast that way, she has no ready answer. She does it that way because that's the way her mother always did it. Curious as to her mother's rationale, the wife calls her mother and asks why she taught her to cut the ends off of the roast. Her mother says she only does it that way because her own mother taught her to do it that way. The young wife next calls the grandmother and asks why cut a 1/4 inch off of the end of every roast. Her grandmother tells her because my roasting pan was too small. The roast wouldn't fit in any other way. We capture this at our next guideline for failing at Agile. Guideline number 16. Slavishly follow Agile practices without understanding their underlying principles. If you haven't been able to implement guidelines 14 through 16 and your Agile project is succeeding despite your best efforts, you can bring even a successful project to a halt simply by changing nothing. What, you say? Change nothing? Follow the example of Status Q team? Status Q, assigned to build a web-based reservation system, got off to a good start. Team members were new to Agile, but did a good level of research and sent a few of their people off to become certified Scrum Masters. Well, the project quickly benefited from the new practices. In a month, Status Q had a simple website up and running and was able to demonstrate a few key interfaces that gave its customers a lot of confidence that their vision of an accessible and powerful reservation system would work. Status Q never held retrospective at the end of each sprint. The Scrum Master didn't push for it because he really didn't see the need. Everything was already working wonderfully well. You can encourage this behavior on your own team by complaining loudly to your Scrum Master and team members if they try to hold a retrospective. Tell them that it's a waste of time to sit and talk about a project that's going well. Tell them that retrospectives only make sense when things are going wrong. Over time, things at Status Q started to slow down. The rate of change and growing code base were creating maintenance problems. Changes to the system from the customers were supposed to be a benefit to them, but the code couldn't keep up. Code stability became so bad that the project seemed to be moving backwards. Finally, the company management stepped in, put a halt to the changes, and finished the contract at half price. This team had unknowingly demonstrated our next 2 guidelines for failing at Agile. Number 17 being, don't continually improve, and number 18 being, don't change the technical practices. Company process issues that at first seem unrelated to the project can have a negative impact on morale and motivation. Consider the case of Dave, an up-and-coming artist who worked for a mobile phone game developer. He welcomed his company's adoption of Agile, as it made a lot of sense to him. The new Agile teams consisted of programmers, artists, designers, and a number of other people from numerous disciplines. Everyone relied on each other to create iterations of their game. If the artist did a good job, then the entire team looked good. Dave often dropped what he was doing to help his teammates iterate on the art to improve the game. This often came at the expense of his own work, but for Dave, the team goals came first. Dave's team did a great job and produced a hit title that sold many thousands of copies and earned the company substantial profits. At the end of the year, Dave had his first performance review with the company's lead artist. Dave was shocked to learn that his yearly bonus was small. Dave was told that he was judged by the senior artist in the company to have missed his art production goals. As it turns out, the senior artist was counting the number of iterative task cards that Dave completed and based his judgment on that, rather than the real amount of work that Dave had completed. Chagrined, Dave returned to his team, vowing to make sure his task cards took priority over the needs of the team. Guideline number 19 can be your backup plan for any enthusiastic Agilist in your company. That being, rather than align pay in incentives, job titles, promotions, and recognition with Agile, create incentives for individuals to undermine teamwork and shared responsibility. The tenet shared by all Agile processes is that work is prioritized based on the value provided by each feature. Other factors such as risk and knowledge creation are considered, but the amount of value delivered remains the dominant factor. A sure way to fail with Agile is to ignore this tenet and instead follow good old guideline number 20. That being, convince yourself that you are able to do all requested work so that the order of your work doesn't matter. There are, of course, other ways to fail in addition to those collected here. In your effort to undermine a successful Agile project, you may already have discovered some of your own. Of course, you are probably keeping quiet about them because it is critical that the sabotage not be detected until the bridge is completely blown. We are confident that through diligent application of the guidelines here, or those that only you know, or better yet, both, you will be able to successfully plot the downfall of your next Agile product. This concludes audio article, of course read all tongue-in-cheek, number 76. Again, this audio article is written by Clinton Keith, whose blog can be found at www.clintonkeith.com. As mentioned at the beginning of this article, we definitely recommend that everybody checks out the information on Clint's amazing 2-day course, March 23rd and 24th at this year's GDC by going to www.clintonkeith.com/next-public-course. And as we always say at the end of every audio article, we recommend that you check back frequently with IndustryBroadcast.com as we endeavor, above all endeavors, to update the site on